Tell us what we need to know going into the election.
Well, going into the election, Joe Biden has a fairly solid lead, although I am a believer in the Trump effect on polls. I think 2 or 3% of the respondents lie to the pollsters. They're embarrassed to admit, even to a stranger, that they're voting for Donald Trump. So I think he runs 3 points better than he polls. So when Hillary was only ahead by 3 points going into the Monday before Election Day, I said on TV I thought we could run into some trouble in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, I was right. But Biden's lead is closer to 7 or 8. And if he holds 5 or more going into Election Day, he's in pretty good shape.
Is the former Vice President Biden ahead by 7 in the state of Pennsylvania? Because I've seen some polls that have it narrower than that.
Yeah, and there's some polls that have it more than 7. And that's the net average.
Gotcha. So are you reasonably confident?
Reasonably confident. You never know. I mean, the debate, although this debate is probably less impactful than any last debate in presidential history since we've been having debates, because most people have made up their mind. Plus, there's a ton of people who voted by mail already in Pennsylvania. So it's going to be hard to affect it as much as it was in the old days. And Biden is winning 2 ways. One, he's going to almost double the margin that Hillary Clinton got in the Philadelphia suburbs. Hillary carried the 4 suburban counties by a margin of 180. I think Biden's going to carry by 300. And then secondly, Biden is not losing the rural counties by nearly as much as Hillary did. So if a rural county went 75-25 for Donald Trump, it's going 69-31 for Joe Biden. And in each one of those counties, and they're small, relatively small counties, each one of those counties, Biden is picking up 5 or 6%. He's 5 or 6 points better than Hillary did. So if you combine those, and he should have a fairly significant win. But it's politics. There's still 2 weeks to go. There's still 1 debate to go. There's still an October or November surprise possible, although it doesn't look likely. So you can't say it's over. And the one thing that we're fighting here, it's apathy. You know, the polls are, in some cases, almost too good. And we're reminding people what happened to Hillary in the last 2 weeks. So we're trying to keep the enthusiasm level up. But boy, the early votes are unbelievable. The lines for people trying to drop off their envelopes are unbelievable.
Well, what's the strategy for a presidential candidate in Pennsylvania? You basically have to build up a really big surplus in the East, particularly in Philadelphia, the suburbs of Philadelphia, to overcome what you might lose out in the West?
Yeah, no question. I won my first election as governor against Mike Fisher, a Republican, a very good candidate. I carried 15 out of 67 counties. But I came out of Philadelphia and the 4 suburban counties, 800,000 votes up. And it was impossible to catch me after that. But again, I won 15 counties out of 67 and won the general election by a margin of 10 points.
What's the perception of how the president has handled COVID-19? Because there's been some, as I understand it, resistance among some citizens of Pennsylvania to the extent to which there's been shutdowns of the state.
Yeah, there's been some resistance, but the people of Pennsylvania, it's pretty much the same as nationally. 70, 72, 73% think that we ought to make mask wearing mandatory. But you've got a vocal minority on the other side, no question about it. But that issue cuts dramatically in Biden's favor. I think Trump was much closer before. At the beginning of the year, he was an even bet to carry Pennsylvania. I think COVID has been a real blow to him. No question about it.
The economy and particularly jobs are going to loom large in everybody's mind. Certainly, I think that's why President Trump has really gone after former Vice President Biden on the question of fracking in the state of Pennsylvania. Is it true that still in Pennsylvania, people overall give an edge to Donald Trump in handling of the economy over Joe Biden? Yeah,
I'd say a very small edge, though, much less than it was 2 months ago. And fracking, Joe Biden is for fracking. The only thing he said is he wouldn't let fracking happen on publicly owned lands. But he's definitely for fracking. And remember, I was the governor who opened up fracking in Pennsylvania, so it was a good issue for Democrats. Governor Wolf, the current governor, Democrat, is very much pro-fracking, and so is Joe Biden. It's natural gas is an important bridge, which produces the burning of natural gas produces 1/2 of the carbon that the burning of coal produces. So it's an important and environmentally better bridge to the future when someday we can get all of our electricity by renewables. But that day is at best 20 years away.
Governor Rendell, finally, are we going to get a clean and clear answer out of Pennsylvania? Because as you know, it looks like they're going to have record numbers of mail-in ballots, absentee ballots across the country. There are already disputes that have arisen. We have a problem here in New York you may have heard of where there are 100,000 ballots that went out that were defective. It's really raising questions about the legitimacy of the process. What's the situation in Pennsylvania when it comes to the process of the voting?
Well, we've never had a problem with absentee ballots before, but absentee ballots in the old days, you had to either be disabled or out of the county to get an absentee ballot. This is the first time we had absentee ballots on demand. Now they weren't mailed out in mass. You had to mail a request or email a request for a mail ballot. You got it, then you filled it out and sent it back in. What's going to happen is in the primary, 70% of the Democrats voted by absentee ballot, only 25% of the Republicans did. So it is likely that when midnight arrives on election night, Donald Trump will still be ahead in the voting because it'll be mostly the people who voted at the polls, and that'll be significantly tilted towards Republicans. But as the mail ballots are counted the next day and the day after that, Joe Biden should, if the polls are correct, should pass Trump. But that fact alone is going to give rise to, oh, the election was stolen from us. But Donald Trump's forces can go into court, but in court they have to do something that they don't have to do when they get on Bloomberg TV or CNN. They have to have evidence. And there is no evidence of widespread voting fraud.